Yo, what's going on, everyone? It's your boy Pup, back again with another week of the BBR D-League. Make sure you guys go check out last week's video where we played against Tone, because I'm about to spoil it. We did end up losing, dropping to 4-1, but I'm still pretty happy with that record. We need definitely one more win to make it in the playoffs, and if I get one this week, I'm going to feel pretty happy about it. 2 would definitely guarantee it, but with our great differential, I think we should be fine if we just win one more. But I want the best record possible, try to get the best pick possible and the best matchups, hopefully make a run deep in the playoffs. But that's besides the point. Today we're playing against the Pokemon Professor and their Drunken Fist Decidueyes. Make sure you go check them out along with all the other BBR D-League coaches in the description. They were picked as one of the scariest rosters in the league before the season, but they have fallen to 2-3 through the first half. So, we really need to win this game just so we don't keep sliding after a loss last week, but I know Professor really needs the win to have a shot at the playoffs, so we're going to have to bring our A game here. As always, I'm going to go very in-depth on our rosters as well as the team that I'm bringing, but be on the lookout for the battle here tomorrow. Looking at the 2 rosters, we see an incredibly scary team headed by their Tera captain, TORNADUS. Torn is faster than my entire roster naturally, and has the regenerator ability to heal itself up every time it switches out. It also has great coverage for my entire team with a combination of Hurricane or Bleakwind Storm or Terra Blast flying, plus Heat Wave basically hitting every single Pokemon incredibly hard. The only thing that doesn't hit the best is Pincurchin, which is just not a good Pokemon anyways. But if they do end up going with Terra Flying and clicking like Hurricane or Bleakwind, that is really going to hurt my team no matter what. They also have Knockoff as some utility to get rid of boots or leftovers, basically punishing the Scream Tail that I would want to switch into it. But the only Pokemon that doesn't really mind taking hits from that is the Scream Tail if I'm like super specially defensive, so I have to keep that in mind. They may want to choose a Tera type that can hit the Scream Tail super effectively, so like Poison I think is really good because it's also great into Sneasler. And solid into the rest of my team, but they also have Ghost, which is great into Sneasler as well. Obviously hit super effective by Throat Chop if I bring that, but Ghost is also great to wall. Great Tusk, decent bit better. Headlong Rush is still going to hurt, but it depends on what I want to click and everything like that. But I really expect them to bring like a fast pivoting, like max HP, max speed sort of thing, that can maybe switch into Sneasler a little bit, or Great Tusk and threaten my team with hard hitting flying moves. Next up is going to be Pecharunt, which is just incredibly good into my team, along with the Tornadus. I think these 2 Pokemon have to come to the game. Malignant Chain Poison is so annoying for me. I have really only one good answer to it, and it's Iron Moth before I Tera. So I basically just have to keep that Mon non-Terra or maybe like Terra Poison are my only good ways around that. But I can recover it off with Morning Sun, which is really nice. But they do have like Parting Shot, so they can give them switch initiative if I want to switch into Iron Moth, so it's really tough. And it can give them setup opportunities with like Urshifu, Rapid Strike, or like Comfy if they want to bring like a Calm Mind, Stored Power sort of set. They also have, obviously the Ghost and Poison type is very good for Sneasler. Throat Chop does hit it super effectively, but it doesn't help that much when they have 160 base defense and can run a Colbur Berry, which is really annoying. I could also see them running like Air Balloon if they want to be able to switch in and spin block my my Great Tusk, but we'll see what they actually want to do with that Pokemon. Another Pokemon that I think is a lock to come to this game is the Urshifu Rapid Strike, like I just mentioned. It has the potential to sweep me basically once Scream Tail goes down if it is like if I bring a physically defensive variant. If I don't, then it just gets up a Sword Stance and a Trailblaze and it just sweeps my team anyways. But yeah, Trailblaze plus Sword Stance is what it's going to bring most likely. It could also be something like Protective Pads. I guess it still makes sense to be, Trailblaze, Sword Stance, CC, Surging Strikes versus me. And it can set up versus a lot of my team. Maybe it would want to bring like a Lumberry or some sort of thing, so I can't Will-O-Wisp it with Iron Moth if I were to bring like a defensive sort of variant on that. But yeah, basically that Mon is just like a nice setup sweeper. I don't think they bring Choice Scarf in this game, but it is a solid option. I just think that if I lock it into, close combat, then my team deals with that pretty well. And if I lock them into like Surging Strikes, then I have Pokemon that can eat up those hits. And not the best, but like potential Terra Iron Moth or something like that, which I've been bringing defensively very often. Next up is going to be Serena. which is the first of 2 rapid spinners on their team, but it's actually just a very bad enemy. I mean, it has a horrible speed tier, and its grass typing just loses to Iron Moth. It loses to Sneasler. It's not even good into Great Tusk because it doesn't do enough damage, and I Ice Spinner just straight through it. Basically, the only thing it has going for it is like spinning. It can knock off boots to make hazards from Tinglu even more annoying. But I can always set up in its face with Sneasler, so I mean, I'm totally fine if they want to bring that Pokemon. But like I just mentioned, Tinglu is the next member on the team, which has great hazard setting potential. They can bring like Terra Ghost on Torn for getting spin blocks with the, against Great Tusk. Obviously, they have Petrunt for that as well. And if they bring an Aeroballoon variant, I think they're going to try to spin block me a little bit more. But basically, like, Torn is able to wall a Great Tusk, so I feel like hazard stacking is really solid against me. I think that they will literally just bring this thing, set up rocks, set up spikes, click Whirlwind, which is really annoying for extra chip if I don't bring a lot of heavy-duty boots. And it can hit actually like decently hard versus my team with Earthquake, not so much into the Great Tusk, but Ruination, which is going to do half of my HP every single time, which makes it really, really annoying for us. Its ability helps by weakening special attack of my Pokemon, so it can be used even as like a pivot for Iron Moth, even if we're like some sort of Energy Ball, even if we're like Terra Grass variant. But it also walls like my Galarian Moltres, since they can Whirlwind me out, so I can't set up nasty plots. And I don't do very much damage to them, even with Hurricanes if they're invested. And I do absolutely nothing even with Screamtail because we have 65 base special attack. Next up on the team is going to be Comfey, who is their fairy type, but luckily is not a Terra Captain, because that would be a little bit too scary for us, I think, with Calm Mind plus Stored Power. I mean, definitely not as scary as like Tornadus, but if I had to choose between the two, I mean, if they had both Terra Captains, it would be a little bit hard. But it's still a big threat to hit us with like priority Draining Kisses and Giga Drains that help like it makes sure that I can't really set up all over them and just destroy them if they have this Pokemon. Especially like I can't run Bulk Up Great Tusk, which I thought would be a pretty solid option if I had like Booster Energy, being able to do a ton of damage to their team to wall break. But I can't really do that. It also walls my Regidrago since we don't really touch it with anything else. In the past, I have ran Dragon Dance Regidrago to actually beat Comfey, but it doesn't actually like beat it 1v1. I don't know. But it just makes it really annoying because Scarf Regidrago looks insane into their team. They don't really have good switch-ins to that besides the Comfey. So hopefully it doesn't come, but I think it should. Probably like Calm Mind, Stored Power, Draining Kiss, Giga Drain, or like some sort of Trick or U-Turn or something like that. But I think they should use it as like some sort of defensive pivot or like this defensive setup option, since they should really be playing towards that like hazards plus knockoff game, and like the Trick plus U-Turn variant makes a lot of sense versus my team. Mon number 7 is going to be Arcanine, which is obviously just like a good mid-tier staple in draft. It has offensive and defensive capabilities. Will-O-Wisp plus Morning Sun is really good defensively if they want to go that route. It's great into my Great Tusk. But Scarfed or Banded with Flare Blitz and E-Speed is also really solid, especially when they want to weaken my Great Tusk as much as possible so I can't spin. I don't really have much to say about this Pokemon. I mean, it's really good. They have a lot of Pokemon that are good into me, so we'll see if this actually comes to the game. But I think if I were them, I would probably bring it just to, try to bait in that Great Tusk, do some damage to it, and kind of cripple it with Will-O-Wisp. Next up is Raikou, which is actually really good in this game. The speed tier 115 is great. It outruns everything on my team aside from Sneasler, except for we're bringing Adamant Sneasler, so it does outspeed everything on my team, so I'm a little bit worried about that. But its Electric Stab is great into my team. Only resistance is Pincurchin, and obviously Great Tusk. But Pincurchin, gives them an electric terrain boost, so they can just Volt Switch Thunderbolt all around me, and it's really tough. And they also have a Scald or Extra Sensory into Great Tusk, which hit really hard, especially if they're ever able to get up like a Calm Mind or something, which is really annoying. I do have potential specially defensive Screamtail that I would want to use for Torn as well. I might be able to, be the play to stop them, but Volt Switch pivoting into like Torn and just doing all that damage into me, it puts me in a pretty bad spot. Second to last is Araquanid. who can obviously set up sticky webs to slow down my team. That makes Urshifu Rapid Strike a huge threat, as they don't really need Trailblaze anymore. They just need Sword Stance, and they probably just win on the spot if I don't have a Boots fast Pokemon. They could also, just do bulk up and win that way as well. But Araquanid, going back to that, can do a ton of damage into my team if they want to go with a more offensive set with Water Bubble boosted Liquidation. They can run Choice Band or Mystic Water. I don't have the best switch-ins to water moves, as my water type on the team is Basculin, which it doesn't eat it quite so well. I thought about maybe potentially bringing Basculin White Stripe with Eviolite. It's just not that good, especially when Araquanid is maybe not even going to show up to this game. But we do have like Earthworm, not Earthworm, even though that is what that Pokemon is. But it doesn't take the hits that well if they're like Choice Banded Liquidation. But they have so many Pokemon that do very well into my team, so we'll see what actually happens. They might bring this Pokemon, they might not. I would love to not see it on their side, but if they bring it, it's not the end of the world. But then last and probably least in the matchup is going to be Komala, second spinner. So they could use that if they really want to, and it has some use into the matchup, being a nice pivot into Iron Moth if they want to run like an Assault Vest variant. Their Comatose ability makes it so that they can soak up Toxic, so I can't really do that set into them. And Fire Dance shouldn't do a lot of damage if they're super invested with the Assault Vest. Body Slam is annoying for my team, especially if they get the Paralysis. Knockoff for Boots, U-Turn, they can run like Earthquake, Wood Hammer, any sort of like filler moves, Play Rough maybe. That is like pretty solid in me. Probably Wood Hammer, I guess, for like Great Tusk. So it's like really good for that paralysis and pivoting. I do think that like their whole team should be based on this like setting up hazards, knocking off all the boots on my team, and just like being able to pivot around and survive for as long as possible. I think that's how they're going to be able to beat me. And I think Komala does it well, but I think some of the other Pokemon on their team do it a little bit better. But obviously, Prof has a really scary team, and I can really see everything except for Serena coming into this game. But now we have to build a team to stop all that, which is a lot easier said than done. The first mon on the team, though, is going to be Tera Flying Iron Moth. Tera Flying is not really important. We're going to try to stay our typing to, work around the Petch runs, be able to switch into that. But it makes them think twice with Tinglu about clicking Earthquake or clicking Whirlwind or whatever they want to click. It also could be nice to get rid of Poison, the Poison typing, to make us have a better matchup into a potential stored power Comfey, and I could potentially get like a Toxic on that, because we have Morning Sun Toxic, Fire Dance, Discharge. So it's gonna be another like bulkier pivot. We have a ton of speed investment to make us only slower than Raikou and Torn. We have special defense, just a little bit of investment in that, so we can take hit from Tornadus or Raikou, and then basically max HP. It also works pretty well to discharge para some of those faster Pokemon on their team, like that Torn. If we get a paralysis on that Pokemon, then I feel really solid about Sneasler in the late game. I also think that it's just a solid click into basically their entire team. It even would be nice to paralyze Petrun, even though I have moves that do a lot more damage into them. But next up on the team, we're going to bring Screamtail as a physically defensive pivot, which might seem a little bit weird, but I think we need it for the Urshifu. We're going to be a Rocky Helmet variant with max defense and a lot of HP while having a decent amount of speed, so we can outrun the Jolly Urshifu. We also underspeed Comfey, so we can click Encore when they come into me if they want to try to click Calm Mind or something like that. Psychic Noise on the set to lock them out of Draining Kiss, Giga Drain, and Synthesis, so I basically destroy that. We have Wish support on this set, so we can get these wishes even if we're supporting our offensive Pokemon on the team. Like you'll see, we have a Regidrago later. I can switch into that, power up my Dragon energies, and it really helps me outrun the hazards if they're going to be very aggressive with that option. But we have Dazzling Gleam on the set as well, just for some damage on Tinglu, just in case we need it. I don't do very much, but it's super effective. And like I already said, we have Rocky Helmet, so that's a ton of damage into Surging Strike's Urshifu. They should probably run Protective Pads, maybe. I mean, I've ran a lot of Rocky Helmets, so they know kind of what I'm going to bring. But also like punishes the U-turn spam from Tornadus, Komala, and Urshifu, especially if it's like a Choice Scarf variant. Next up, I just talked about it. We're going to bring Choice Scarf Regidrago, which absolutely destroys their team if they do not bring Comfey, or I guess if they have Tera Fairy on Tornadus. But if we are at full HP, we can 2-hit KO basically the entire team with Dragon Energy. And I think that includes a specially defensive Tinglu. I don't remember. I don't have the calc in front of me. It's either like physically defensive or specially defensive that it's just like just 2-hit KOing. Maybe physically defensive. I don't really remember at this point. But you know, we might want the wish for Screamtail to be able to pass it to this Pokemon, so I'm always keeping full HP. Basically, you know, even if they are like max specially defensive Assault Vest sort of set on Tinglu, you know, they can't switch into me very often. We also have Draco Meteor just in case we aren't at full HP. We do have the downside of 90% accuracy and a little bit of an attack drop from a full HP Dragon Energy, but it's still like very respectable versus their team. Even at +2 or at -2 after we've Dracoed once, it does a lot of damage and really keeps their team from setting up. But as long as we can get rid of, you know, the fairies on their side, or if they just don't bring anything, we're really good into them. But I also need to keep hazards on the field, or keep hazards off of the field, obviously, and identify like their potential Choice Scarfers to make sure I'm able to outrun their entire team. But speaking of keeping hazards off the field, next up is going to be Great Tusk. We are running heavy duty boots just so we don't get slowed down by webs if they're there, and I don't want to take like 30% if they're setting up spikes and stealth rocks with Tinglu. But we're just max speed and max attack for a ton of damage into their team. I've been speed creeping a ton, so I just decided to go max speed just in case they get really aggressive with their creeps. It doesn't actually hit anything meaningful, but it can catch them if they want to go with like a semi-fast Petron set, but not like super fast. But if they're Adamant Urshifu, trying to get aggressive like a Trailblaze set or something like that, then we will be able to outrun them. But the combination of Close Combat, Headlong Rush, and Knockoff deals massive damage to their team. They don't really have a great switch in to all of that, especially when their Ghost type does not want to get knocked off before Sneasler comes out. But we're going to need all this damage to break the bulky pivot style that I think does really well into me. Next up is our premier sweeper for the week, which is going to be Sneasler, obviously, as we destroy their entire team if we get a Swords Dance and Unburden boost off. I haven't run Unburden at all this season, and I feel like if people think I'm going to bring Unburden, then they'd expect me to bring the Pincurchin, or maybe like fake out Normal Gem, so I'm not bringing any of that. It's still like a normal set, but I'm hoping that I can catch them off guard since we haven't done it yet. We're going to be a White Herb variant on this, so we can easily proc our Unburden by clicking Close Combat, or if the Petron wants to click Parting Shot into me, or if Arcanine comes in as a defensive pivot to intimidate me, we're going to get our Unburden proc through any of that. Obviously, manually clicking Close Combat is easiest to set up, but if they switch into like Torn, which is Tera Ghost, or if they switch into Petron, then obviously that's not going to work. But if they like Parting Shot or Intimidate on the turn that we go for Swords Dance, we basically just win the game on the spot, or at least we completely break down their team, so we have a great chance to win. Throat Chop and Dire Claw are, great on top of the moves we mentioned before. Throat Chop is good to KO a weakened Petron, especially if they're not like fully physically defensive Culver Berry variants. It also OHKOs a Tera Ghost Tornadus. But even if they're like Tera Poison Tornadus to be able to stop me, if they don't have that much HP and defense investment, I should be able to knock them out at +2 since we are going with an Adamant, just a very aggressive speed creep versus them. Does mean that we do get outsped by Raikou if they bring that Pokemon, which I think is really solid into me, but they won't expect it. And I feel like as long as I just get the Sunburn boost off, I should be able to break down their team pretty easily. Dire Claw is on there, just as great stab. It hits like Serena, it does good damage into everything, and if I really need it, I can try to get a lucky Para, Poison, or Sleep. I'm not going to complain if I get any of that. Last Pokemon on the team is going to be my Basculin. Love this Pokemon. Mostly, I just want to use it, even though it's like very mid in the matchup. They might think I'm bringing it more defensively since I've done that in the past, to take on like an Urshifu that kind of destroys me, or the Araquanid, or maybe like just try to trade with one of those Pokemon. But we're going to bring Scarf Final Gambit, which is what I brought in like the first week versus Bope. It's always solid. It's like actually really not the best in this matchup because they have Petrunt that can switch in on that, and then I'm kind of in a bad spot. But I don't think they're going to pivot into Petrunt on a potential banded wave crash that could just put them into range of Sneasler and let us win the game on the spot, like hopefully. Because Sneasler should be able to set up in the face of Petrunt. They can't click Malignant Chain, it does nothing. Shadow Ball doesn't do that much. If they get a drop with that, or if they parting shot out on our Sword Stance, then we probably just win anyways. But yeah, I mean, we should be able to Oko a lot of stuff on their team with this Basculin. And Oko's everything but Tinglu if they don't have HP investment. Obviously, they will have HP investment and stuff. But like Tornadus needs to be a max HP to be able to take it. So if I get a little bit of chip, even after some regenerator healing, should be able to take it out. A lot of Pokemon on their team are like just above my HP range, so if they have a good amount of bulk investment, so if they're like being very aggressive with their speed creeps, they might be able to live with a couple Pokemon on their team. But I'll take it because you know, I'll trade Basculin, like a 2-pointer Pokemon, for, you know, something like their Torn, like 19 points or something like that. But that is going to be it for our team. Hope you guys did enjoy. Since I'm taking a few hours away from studying for my mechanics final tomorrow to script and record it. But make sure you guys all leave a like and subscribe so you don't miss the battle tomorrow. Also, let me know, who do you think is going to put in the most work this week? I'm hoping that Sneasler is just going to be able to put in a ton of work, but, you know, Basculin could also put in a ton of work, just being able to trade 1-for-1 with anything. But hopefully we can come out with another dub tomorrow. So I'll see you guys. Peace.